there is a United States women's national team pair of friendlies that are coming up. So we are going to hitch everybody up with a quick preview of that. The game is going to be taking place on Thursday, September 16th. So everybody get ready for that. The first of two friendlies. They're going to be facing off against Paraguay. Just to run down this roster by position again so people get an idea who they're looking for. A lot of familiarity in terms of the Olympics because that's really what these games are. There's these two matches and then two more coming up in October. Really kind of a bit of an exhibition to just sort of congratulate the Olympians on the bronze medal. And the first two are going to see a lot of the 2020 Tokyo Game Olympic roster with a few additions to them. So we've got Jane Campbell and Adriana Francis, the goalkeepers. For defenders, Abby Dahlkemper, Turner Davidson, Crystal Dunn, Casey Kruger, Kelly O'Hara, Becky Sauerbrunn, and Emily Sonnet. For the midfield core, it's Lindsay Horan, Rose Lavelle, Katerina Macario, Christy Mewis, Andy Sullivan. And for the forward core, it's Tobin Heath, Carly Lloyd, Alex Morgan, Mallory Pugh, Sophia Smith, and Lynn Williams. Previously, when we broke down this roster, we talked about how there is no inclusion for Alyssa Nair or Sam Mewis, so they are around with the training camps and are participating in the sense of getting evaluations and seeing where they are in their current rehab. Julie Ertz and Megan Rapinoe are completely out of this one with current injuries, and Kristen Press has made the personal decision to put international playing on postponement for a second while she continues to focus on her mental health, and we send her our best. But again, not a lot of surprises in this roster, Lisa. It's exactly what we figured we were going to be seeing post Olympic friendlies for this team. It's it's the Olympic roster plus some NWSL players. That's who's going to be taking on Paraguay over these next two games. What are you trying to get out of a game, or both of these games, Lisa? Because this is a team, Paraguay is a team that United States doesn't have a lot of familiarity with. Paraguay is a national team in a certain situation that a lot of other teams have been in, coming out of sort of the pandemic as they're currently navigating those things, not getting a lot of time together, not necessarily seeing a lot of time on the pitch or having camps together. So there's potential for this scoreline to look a certain kind of way when we're looking ahead to these two games. So what are you looking for in terms of watching this team and what they could get out of these games?
Looking at this roster specifically, which is what you started with, you gave us the rundown as to who all will be attending these matches. If I'm Vlatko and I'm sitting in this chair looking at this roster ahead of me, I have to be thinking about the future. I do. So, of course, Carly Lloyd is there, and she deserves to start and play a lot of minutes because she has had an incredible career that deserves to be honored and recognized in front of the U.S. crowd at huge packed stadiums. So that's one box that we have to think about as Vlatko Andonovski. Another box is the future, the World Cup qualifiers that are coming, and how you have a lot of young talent that maybe didn't get a lot of time at the Tokyo Olympics or who wasn't even on the roster during the Tokyo Olympics that you're thinking about potentially bringing with you to the World Cup. You have to see how they fit in, despite whoever your opponent is in Paraguay, but how they fit in this team and how they fit in with some of the veterans that are already on this team or some of the younger players that did see a lot of minutes in the Tokyo Olympics. And that's where the pieces of the puzzle have to come together. I honestly don't think that Vlatko Andonovski even cares about the scoreline at the end of these matches. I mean, maybe just for like his own personal stat book and Wikipedia page about how many wins and losses he gets with this team. But I don't want anyone that doesn't watch these games to look at the scoreline at the end of it and make any judgment. I think the U.S. will win. However, I think it comes down to more the players on the field, what they're doing and what they're showing. When I look at the goalkeepers, we have Jane Campbell and A.D. Franch. I want to see Jane Campbell play a full 90 minutes. I do, because you saw what happened in Tokyo Olympics. Very unfortunate, but Alyssa Nair got injured, and then A.D. Franch had to step in. And in those first few minutes of that match, she looked a little shell-shocked, and you don't want that to happen again. God forbid another player gets injured in the World Cup or a bigger game and they have to step on the field, and now they've never been in that position. So I want to see Jane Campbell get a full 90, or maybe they split halves, or I doubt they'll do that, but I want to see a full 90 from Jane Campbell between her and AD Franch. And then when you look at the back line, I think Casey Kruger is a player that didn't see that many minutes in Tokyo Olympics that deserves to have some more. She's been a player that's been on the bubble of this national team, and now she's gotten a chance to be at camp. And how does she play? We know how she played Tierna Davidson because they both play for the Chicago Red Stars, but a player like Becky Sauerbrunn or another center back slotting in there, whoever it may be, whether it's Abby Dahlkemper, and then Crystal Dunn on the outside. So the defense is not that different than what we saw before, but in the midfield, there's Katrina Macario, Christine Mewis, who didn't see a lot of time at the Olympics, Andy Sullivan, who has now made this roster. I want to see Andy Sullivan and what she can do with Becky Sauerbrunn in behind her and playing that 6 defensive midfield role with really speedy forwards up top, maybe a Lynn Williams. I'd love to see that. But that's what I want to see. Different combinations of players on the field, because this is the long game now for Vlatko Andonovski and for the U.S. women's national team, while still keeping in mind that Carly Lloyd deserves all the recognition and all the praise in these games, because she does. This is a huge moment for her, and that's probably what's drawing most of these crowds at these stadiums right now. It's her victory lap, and she deserves to be celebrated.
Yeah, in terms of a starting 11, I'm in agreement with you. I'm absolutely expecting to see Carly Lloyd in these lineups, if not getting the start, probably getting the captain's armband and, getting extensive minutes, within them, whether or not they're full 90s, remains to be seen. But I would love to see, players who maybe didn't see a lot of time during the Tokyo games to also get some match minutes in. Obviously, yes, the goalkeeper position is a huge one. Whenever the opportunity presents, the sort of number 2 or third string, should always try to get game minutes when they can. And it looks like this is going to be a pair of friendlies in which that does happen. So whether it's Campbell getting the first one or French getting the first one, not too sure how it's going to play out, but I think as long as they split them, I'm good with that. I would like to see that for sure. But yeah, I absolutely want to see the players who didn't see a lot of time in the Olympics. Katerina Macario is another one for me to sort of really get into the mix. I would love to see a combination of, Macario and Smith and Pugh on the pitch at the same time, if possible. I would be here for it 100%. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not Vlatko, but if I'm looking at...
I think there's also the balance of playing those players that don't have experience. So that would be a Macario, a Smith, a Mal Pugh that don't have experience at this level, playing them together and see how they do. But also throwing a Sophia Smith in the front line alongside Alex Morgan and Carly Lloyd. That would be interesting. I want to see what that looks like. I think finding the balance between the young players playing with the young players and seeing how this team could look in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years versus also throwing in the young players with a lot of the veterans to see how well they adjust to playing with veteran players that can understand and dictate the game, because I think that's where the learning curve will be more apparent. And then these players you can learn more playing next to someone that has more experience than you can by sitting and watching them on the bench. But also you can learn a lot by playing on the field with other people that have no idea what's going on, and you're just thrown into the fire and you have to figure it out. So the balance between the young with the young and the young with the veterans, I'm really excited to see how it plays out, because Vlatko is a tremendous coach. I believe that. And I think he has a game plan that will benefit not only the younger players, but also the veterans in making sure that they pass on their knowledge and their experience to the rookies of this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is Paraguay is a national team in which maybe you're going to want to try some of those scenarios out, right? Maybe sort of getting X amount of younger players who haven't been seeing a lot of time on the international stage in this current system with the U.S. women's national team against a team like Paraguay. Like, yes, there's going to be, the narrative that a team like Paraguay is going to present new challenges because you don't face this team often, and that's true. And I am always personally excited whenever Latin American teams are featured against the United States women's national team, for a number of reasons. It provides a look at a team that audiences aren't used to watching. It provides a look into players that they're not used to seeing, quite frankly, on the pitch. And on the other side of things, it's huge for a program like Paraguay, for that women's team. These are players who don't get a lot of opportunities, let alone at this level, at that scale, having the opportunity to go up against the number one ranked team in the world. So for a lot of those players on the opposite side, this is maybe a chance for them to really show off and showcase who they are and what they got. Scouts who might be in the area being able to look at the opposition if they're trying to get a different look at a different player to integrate within their own teams or systems, but just not a lot there for this Paraguay side. I mean, they were supposed to have games against Colombia, and they got canceled. The last time they had a match was in April against Japan, and it was a 7-0 blowout. So it's just there's things that we're looking for within this Paraguay side as well that we can maybe try to present and talk about with you, our listeners as well. So hopefully maybe it might not be that type of scoreline, but I'm not going to say that it won't be either. I mean, the United States women's national team they're coming off of an Olympics where we were looking at the attack and we were like, wow, like what's going on with the goal? So going up against this team and depending on who is lining up and how and where, maybe it might take some time for the U.S. to still build that attack and build that chemistry in front of goal as well. So I'm looking to see all of these things on both sides of the ball. So 2 games coming up in September, Thursday on the 16th, and then on the 21st of September, that'll close things out. And then looking ahead, there will be 2 additional friendlies in October that are going to be coming up as well. And we will be there for you to cover all of that stuff as well. And we'll do live recaps for you all. So similar vibe to the Olympics. If you all were joining us during the very ungodly hours of the Tokyo games, where we were coming at you live post-match during these United States women's national team games and hitting you with live reactions and first reactions, guess what? We're going to do it again for these matches, and it's going to be at a much better hour, quite frankly. And we're going to be having a different type of energy, probably, maybe a little less caffeine, but I'm not going to say that we won't have any, but we're going to be participating in first reactions and live recaps for that as well. So look out for us about 30 minutes post whistle from these matches, and we'll hit you all up on YouTube, and we will all hang out together. We will have the live chat going. We know how much everybody loves to say things at us, so we will be around. So come and join along and participate and all that. We're excited for these games. We're excited to share them all together. So join us along for the ride.